Good evening, guys. I just wanted to make a quick note tonight about crying because this is something I meant to explain. It's very simple and very brief. So if you're in recovery, you know, a lot of programs will tell you that crying or being in a negative emotional state is not a good thing. And I want to make a distinction here. Crying when it is a release is very positive. So if you feel like, you know, better after you cry, if you feel more like healthy tired, like calm tired, or you feel a little bit more just open emotionally after crying, it's not a pop. It's not part of a limbic trauma loop. And a lot of times for most people I see, that's necessary sometimes, even in stage 1, to just, if it's a way you release, it can just get some of the stress chemistry out. You actually release it through your tears, like the stress hormones will go into your tears. It's quite helpful. So if you find that you feel like you're able to kind of reset, go for it. So this is trial and error, obviously. Cry when you want to and see what happens. If you end up feeling like you are a victim and the world is ending and you're crying because you're having symptoms and you feel overwhelmed and you feel like you'll never get better and it's just so bad and the world is ending, oh my God. If that's the kind of crying that you're doing, then I would encourage you to not cry. If you feel worse afterwards, if you feel more limbic, if you feel more depressed or despairing or scared, then, you know, and you feel more tension and more discomfort in your body, then that's probably not, like energetically, emotionally, that's probably not the right path. Now, the other thing I want to highlight very briefly with this, if you're in stage 2 or 3, stick with me for a second. If you are in a place where you're processing trauma or grieving, then you may have a training zone with crying. So what I encourage you to realize is there will be a point where the crying goes from healthy release crying or processing crying into victimhood crying. And you can rewire by noticing when the energy shifts, noticing when the emotions shift, and noticing if there's a story with it. If we have a story running in the mind while we're crying, most likely it's limbic, because you have this sob story of how awful things are and how much of it, you know, whatever the sob story is. But usually if there's any story running, it's probably limbic. So one of my affirmations for this is only love, no stories. I'm loving myself. I'm letting myself have this experience that I need to have and grieve or process or whatnot. And then just honor. And if you need to stop, redirect, you know, put it back on the shelf and remind yourself that, you know, I hear you, but this is just kind of my nervous system's limit at this point. And we'll come back to this later. I'm not ignoring you, self or inner child. We're going to come back and finish this another time, but we're going to take a break right now because I can tell you're getting a little overwhelmed. And that's totally fine. So there's a training zone with it. And obviously you'll reach a point where you can just cry when you need to and not cry when you don't. It's not a problem. But just for those 2 scenarios, there's that. And I love you guys. I hope this is helpful.